we're back with another edition of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. My name is Jonathan Howe. He is Travis Cunningham. This is episode, now I forget. Technically 79, I think, right? We're on?
79.
All right, we're on episode 79. I will go first. I rarely do, but I'm going first, and I'm saying Chris Hale. One of my favorites to watch in terms of the street stock guys, because I always find he always ends up starting out back for some reason. Then he's like one of those guys who just cuts through, whether he be racing at a Thunder stock at Ohsweken or street stocks wherever, or Hoosier stocks at Maryville. He always seems to be cutting through a field and making things entertaining. So Chris Hale for 79.
All right, I got one. He's retired now, but he was pretty big in his day, Dick Mahoney. And then another one, 79, Jordan Thomas. He's American, but he comes up and runs Ohsweken every now and again. Just for the Nationals. He won a race there, National Weekend 2 years ago.
I was going to say, I think I remember that, actually. All right, let's dive. Speaking of the Nationals, we should probably dive right into the news that the Ohsweken Speedway schedule is out. You are going to be getting your season going Friday, May 17th. I mean, there's some test and tune nights ahead of that, but first official race night, the 27th season opener is Friday, May 17th. How are you feeling about the schedule, and what are you liking so far that you've seen on it?
I think there's 16 nights for us, which is pretty good. Pretty standard from what I was expecting, really, for us. I knew because we already knew about all the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically just seeing what nights we get off.
Yeah, exactly.
There's two in July in a row. One, the Noel Teal race, no 360s, and then the week after that's the powwow. So there's 2 weeks off for us. Nice little break in the middle of summer. So,
which works out because you guys have 2 nights in a row the week prior to that, as Thursday, July 11th, Friday, July 12th. That's when the Pinty's cars, or I guess NASCAR Canada Series, I got to start dropping the Pinty's because Pinty's in Verum. I don't know how to say that.
CASCAR.
Yeah, I know, right?
They might as well just bring back CASCAR at this point.
Yeah, but then it screws up the NASCAR branding, and they don't want to do that. So
CASCAR by NASCAR.
No, you're talking. Either way, the NASCAR Canada Series is going to be at Ohsweken Thursday, Friday. I kind of like that they're doing a Thursday, Friday. I think that's a lot easier to get out to and plan a trip for. That's happening July 11th and 12th.
There's only one NASCAR race, though, right? It's only the Thursday for them.
Yes, exactly. It is the Thursday night is when the NASCAR race is. Yep, and then Friday night, you guys have the Nitro 54 and Sit and Bull Tire Thunder on the Grand for you guys. So $10,000 to win for the 360 sprint cars, crates, and Northeast late models also as part of that show.
I can't wait. Let's go. I'm ready for the res.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Loaded up August, full Friday slate through August, and then should probably make note of the fact that we've got the 20th running of the Northern Sprint Car Nationals happening Saturday, September 14th. The night before, the third running of the Northern Crate Nationals. And for the first time ever, we've got the Northern Thunderstock Nationals happening Thursday, September 12th. So 3 nights in September, 3 very big race nights. Looking forward to those ones. And that's one worth camping out for, too, if you can swing it.
That's the best one to camp over for. That's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the Catalina wine mixer.
Street
stock race is huge.
I'm just looking at this now. I just thought of this.
My favorite thing about the street stock race.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just how it'll make the track for us practicing on Thursday a lot more race conditions, whereas last year it was hammered down in the second session. It was still hammered down on the bottom, but I found myself driving through the slick stuff on purpose to try to simulate Saturday better.
Yeah.
But this year it's going to be better for us practicing with the street stocks. There's going to be like a gazillion street stocks there for that race, so I like it.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
What did you say?
I was going to say that I'm just looking at this now, and I think we're lining up my bachelor party for the weekend of the July kind of 3-packer races there.
I know.
So,
I told you that yesterday at lunch when I was like, I can't do that. It's a huge week.
Yeah, I know. You got a race on the Friday for sure. I may have to see if I can swing this where we extend the trip a little bit and maybe we start on the Thursday. Yeah, see if I can drag some of the boys out for a camp night, and then we head up wherever we're gonna go. I think we're going to Barrie, but that's those details still to be ironed out. But yeah, I might have to incorporate that in there for a little bit. But um, good. I think it's a great schedule. I'm pretty stoked on this. I'm stoked on what Merrittville's offering. We are once again spoiled again down here in Southern Ontario. I still expect some announcements probably from Humberstone, but we'll see what's going to happen there. If anything, I would expect 1 to 2 races a month through the summer months kind of thing.
My favorite thing is I can race 20 times at my 2 favorite tracks. 16 at Ohsweken, 4 at Merrittville. There you go. That's a full season right there.
That's more than a full season. I feel like with the rainouts that we had last year, I think that's like if you can get all those dates in, which
last year I got 20 something.
Yeah, because you added a couple of ESS dates.
I didn't go to them all. Yeah. I'm going to do that this year too, hopefully.
Yeah. Speaking of sprint car news, we should probably jump into the results out of Barberville in Volusia. Or am I looking at the right track?
Shot.
Donnie Shots. Yeah, it was Volusia.
In Barberville, Florida.
I thought I had my notes wrong for a second. I was like, wait, no, it was the Bike Week Jamboree. I got this right. Donnie Shots winning it over Sheldon Hottenschild and Carson Macedo. David Gravel 4th, Celsi 5th. Pretty typical top 5, I would say there, but awesome to see Donnie Shots back on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, like I saw someone say on Twitter, when Don wins, America wins, and I thought that was funny, and that's how I feel. Like I love Don wins these days. And what else was I gonna say?
Well, it's gotten kind of to the point.
Buddy Kofoid got a flat tire. He was leading. I'd say Don probably didn't have anything for Kofoid, but he blew a left rear. Kofoid has terrible luck leading races. Last year he blew up leading the 250,000 to win race somewhere. I think that was at Jackson. And he blew a left rear leading this weekend, or Monday. It was weird that it was going to be Saturday. They always do Sunday, Monday. But I guess that's because of the bike week stuff.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why. But I was going to say that good effort from Hottenschild too, leading 13 laps, coming up a little bit short there, but I like what I'm seeing from Sheldon this year. Like I still think Gravel's probably the favorite to win the World of Outlaws this year, but I don't know. I've got this sneaky feeling about Sheldon.
I got the sneaky feeling about Don.
I mean, he's definitely have. I don't want to say he's got an open field because I would still say that the racing and the field is still very strong.
Has gotten off to a shitty start. So he's like 8 points right now. Didn't expect that. That's a big one. Schuhart, you never know what can happen. It's wide open this year, if you ask me, obviously, because the guy that's won it the last 5 years in a row isn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
He's running the other series.
Yeah. Gravel, Schultz, Shots, Celsi, and Schuhart and Macedo are your top 5 in points after that one. So I don't know. I still think with Sheldon lurking there in 6, Michael Kofoid is in 7th, Corey Day up in the top 10 in points too. Gonna be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I got high hopes, and you know what? I would say the one thing that we learned from watching this World of Outlaws event is that the fans are still very much with the World of Outlaws.
Yes. We were going to talk about the high limit. Let's get into it now. Like the high limit, they ran February, whatever it was, the 26th was one of the dates at Golden Isles in Georgia. Yeah. And on the Thursday, they had 26 cars and like no people in the stands. Like I'm talking less than 100, it looked like. So, and then the Saturday was a little bit better because they ran a doubleheader with the Lucas Oil late models. And who won those ones? I know. I'm looking at the $20,000 on Saturday.
I'm looking at the Thursday results on the 22nd, and it was Tyler Courtney. Sunshine got it done.
Yeah,
over Brent Marks and Justin Peck.
Jacob Allen.
Parker Price Miller was 4th.
So where I'm going with that.
Spencer based in. Yep, go ahead.
So like everyone I saw on Twitter and all the socials, like people comparing because on Monday the Outlaws only got 17 or 18 cars in Volusia, but the stands were packed because there was a bike week, and that's why they run that race because they know there's tons of people down there. And so that way worked out. And then to compare it to the high limit race where they got 26 cars, but nobody in the stands, I think I'm going to take the Outlaws way with the full crowd because then you're not bankrupting the track. Mm-hmm. But I just think Golden Isles wasn't a good track for sprint cars. It's pretty boring. There was a good race on Saturday at Golden Isles with Jacob Allen winning the 20Gs, but honestly, because like there's 4 of them swapping the lead.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons why that race for the lead happened is because they couldn't pass lap cars. They all came up on lap car and they were all around the bottom. And then the leader would have to try to move and get out of it to get around the lap car, and then so it would open up for the next guy. But
so would you say that's the result of
would
you say that's the result of the Golden Isles racetrack? Like that's kind of just what it presents? Yeah.
They hadn't run sprint cars there in forever. So
yeah.
I don't think I heard them. Dominic Selzy started a podcast with Daryl Turford and JJ Hickle called the Drivers Project Podcast or whatever. And I listened to it and he was talking about it, and he said Dominic Selzy was talking about it on there, and he said that the kind of the word in the piss was no one was really like, oh man, this place was awesome, and we got to come back kind of stuff. It was just like another track, because it's kind of sometimes big tracks for sprint cars ain't it these days.
Yeah.
Too wide open and spread out. I'd take a 3/8 or a quarter mile, third mile over most half miles other than Knoxville. And Volusia's all right, but Knoxville, Port Royal's awesome, but Williams Grove, ugh.
Yeah, well, looking ahead, the high limits have the month of March off. They will get back into action April 9th at Riverside International Speedway for a midweek money race there. And looking over at the World of Outlaws sprint car schedule, they're back in action this weekend at was it Kendall Speedway Park, right in Texas. So
there's a crazy thing for the Outlaws.
Yep,
they had to race Monday in freaking Florida and then be in Texas for Friday.
Yeah. It's a pretty demanding schedule.
Now they're going to stay out that way for a while, but
yeah, they're
in Texas was pretty insane. 4 days to get there and get your maintenance done and all that.
Yeah, Texas,
drive across country,
Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, back to Oklahoma, some more in Missouri. They're all pretty much in that south central United States.
There's a lot of new tracks they're going to too because of the split with High Limit, and they're all battling for tracks and drivers. I can't wait to watch it play out. One thing on that the Drivers Project podcast, they were talking about who would win in a fight. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. I'd go check that one out. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty good.
Nice.
Dominic Selzy's hilarious.
I like it. He's
very funny.
We'll check it out. That's on the list. Another one I was going to say to talk about would be, or to go and listen to in terms of a podcast this week on the Dale Jr. Download. Junior's away. His sister Kelly is hosting, and they had quite a good conversation regarding the World Racing Group, and I believe it was Brian Carter who was actually on the episode this week to talk all things World Racing Group, which is pretty cool. There's some great clips already coming out about their commitment to growing, not just support for the racetracks and support for the series regionally, but just the sport of dirt racing as a whole. And it was a lot of things that all of us probably want to hear. So I would say go and check that out. And I'm sure there's also a lot of behind the scenes details. I haven't got quite to that part yet, but we've got the official news now that the ASCS is now under the World Racing Group banner as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to listen to it for. I think I already know what's going to happen there. Where 360s are strong, I think they're going to keep it 360s, and where 410s are strong, they're going to bring 410s into ASCS and stuff like that. That's my guess. Like maybe Ohio Speed Week, they can do something with the 410s there, and because that's where the main thing. Because Donnie Schatz was on Giovanni Selzy's podcast. I forget what that one's called, but he just said how it was a kick in the nuts for the Ohio and PA local guys that the All-Stars aren't there no more.
Yeah.
And there's a void there, and I think Dirt Car's going to try to fill it. So I'm going to say watch for ASCS to be 410 and 360s.
Yeah.
Up.
So how would you put it as under some kind of like dirt banner? Like would you
just
call it like the Dirt 360? Well, it's
obviously under Dirt Car.
Right?
No, just for that one, it's easy. Still call it the ASCS.
Yeah.
Presented by World Racing Group.
Yeah.
That one's already branded.
And then you just come up with like a 410 class that's on top of that underneath the ASCS bandwagon. Yeah. Banner.
Something like that. Yeah.
Rather
than call it something completely different. Like because back in the day, in the TNN days, when there was a lot of when all the racing was bumping in the early 2000s, late 90s there, the Outlaws were so healthy with drivers full time. They had enough like like up and coming drivers to start the Gum Out series
Yeah.
and have like a whole other series of like a whole other national series of guys who weren't quite ready yet to go up against the Kinsers and Swindells and all those guys on the real Outlaws back then. So they started. That's how like Craig Delancey got started and a whole bunch of guys.
It's almost like
So that kind of
it's
stuff's
a
already
development
happened.
league.
So it could come back. Yeah. So I'm getting something like that. Definitely 360s to the development league to the Outlaws.
Yeah, and the more you can, the biggest question that I'm hoping this is something they touch on is how you make that affordable. Obviously, we're already talking about how hard it is to, run
I hate
a
that word
world
in
ice.
racing. Racing
I
ain't
know.
affordable. If you're looking for affordable, get out because it ain't affordable. Get out now. Like mini stocks aren't affordable. We were literally talking about this with Doug Gordon the other day, and they're talking about enduro drivers putting over 5Gs into an enduro car. So, like I said, racing is not affordable. None of the classes are. I hate that conversation. Hate it.
Okay, well, you got to make it.
It's the racer's own problem. You know what I mean?
They are your.
Like
You
if
guys
the racer
are your
just
worst enemy.
blindly believes the engine builder. Oh, I need the $60,000. Everything. Like some of the stuff doesn't really matter. Like with the engine, the main thing is the heads and the cam. That's got to be the most. The rest, like the short block, that's where you can maybe you don't need the super. That's where like let's say Cali's cranks instead. You can get the real Cali's one, or you can get the Cali's Comstar. That's literally over half price, but it's just not made in the USA. But they're just as good. But that's the one I run. And like I say, they're really over half the price. So that's where the difference is. You can get them a little cheaper. I'm not saying it's still cheap. That's the whole thing. Even a budget 360 engine is still 40, but like they're all like engine parts are expensive and car parts are expensive no matter what you're running. So I hate the affordable part.
Okay,
Nothing's
so is there
affordable.
anything?
Like, name me an affordable thing. There ain't much.
Is there anything that the ASCS can do then, as like in World Racing Group, as like a sanctioning body to make it so that there is a, I don't want to say like a cost cap, but basically like make it so that it is
No cost cap.
more
The main thing,
like the barrier to entry
ASCS
needs
goes
to be easier.
To me, like the main thing to try to keep it is to make sure tracks don't take rubber and tear off tires every night. Like ACS goes to a lot of tracks that even the Outlaws go to a lot of tracks where rubber's up and turns into an asphalt race and the tires are corded after one night. Like that's it. There's the how you make it affordable right there. You got to keep tires costs under control. And I'm not just saying like bring the tire costs down. Like don't purposely or not like don't ignore your track prep to the point where it takes rubber and you're ripping them off like a pavement track. So you might as well just go pavement racing at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So
that's the main thing for me. Other than that, racing, like it's just not.
It's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, and like I say, I haven't had a chance to grab the whole interview here with Brian Carter yet from the Dale Jr. download, but I am definitely going to be tuning into that one and just. I think it's kind of exactly what all of us are going to want to hear, especially going into a new season.
Yeah, crate sprints and sportsmen's, they're the most affordable, like upper echelon crate sprints. But even those cars, like there's people that are spending over 100 G's on those. I'm sure. Like,
well, and you're starting to see it now too, where
stuff.
Some folks are trying to play with the LS swapped engines for like thunder stocks and street stocks and stuff for different tracks. I've started to see those options start to come out finally, because
that's where we can start talking affordable.
So crazy.
Yeah, and making it more affordable. But we're not making it affordable. We're just making it a little more affordable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you never like? I don't think rule changes.
All it
too.
is
rule
you're taking what money
as well.
Well, whatever money you're gonna save, you're gonna just end up taking and spending it on a different part of the race car, anyways.
Yeah.
It's like oh, sick! You save $2,000 on.
Racing's for people that love work and hate money. And if you don't do those two things, racing probably ain't for you.
I mean,
it's really fun though. You get to go fast, and I want to go fast.
All right, Ricky Bobby, if you say so. Yep. Speaking of going fast, we're gonna have some local talent going fast down at Georgetown and at Port Royal, as the Short Track Super Series is going to be back in action the next couple of weekends. This weekend they're in Georgetown, like I say. They have an open practice night on the 8th, and then the Saturday is the Jake Marine Memorial. And then Port Royal, they've got the Speed Showcase 75, March 16th. So we got some modified action to look forward to. I'm sure Matt Williamson going to be down there. We also got the news that Dalton Slack going to be out at the Port Royal event.
Yeah, I knew that was coming for a while. Pretty pumped up about it. I think that's going to be hopefully attract his style, which is right foot down. And yeah, hopefully it's a good run. Going to be a tough race. 50 grand. Going to be a ton of cars there.
Definitely.
But yeah, best part about Port Royal is a place where you could start last in your heat, and if your car's good, you can drive to the front of it. So, car's good,
Yeah.
you'll be good.
Well, hopefully they nail the setups, and yeah, we can't wait to come back and talk about that.
I think JMF's going to that too for the sportsman. Maybe Cody. Maybe not Cody now with that Vertigo post I saw today, but I know Cody was thinking of it. I'm pretty sure JMF is going.
Yeah, we'll see how.
Should we break the?
Whoop. Go ahead.
Should we make Steve Senior's Day and talk local driver rumors, because it's getting close and we do have some now.
What are you?
He wants to hear about guys
you know what?
up.
It's trade deadline time in the NHL. Let's have Travis Cunningham, the insider, break some stuff here.
Well, it's already Nelson Mason running 358's already been broken.
Yep.
Right.
Which I think immediately makes him a threat in that series.
Yeah.
Like I'm expecting. Like I know it's there's difficulty in moving up, but I feel like, especially at Ransomville, he's capable of being top 5 in points.
Yeah. One of the difference I was always saying is like the difference between sportsman guys and mod guys. Like when sportsman guys get into each other for the most part, it's like a driver's mistake. But a lot of time modified drivers can get into you and they'll be doing it on purpose. But like they'll make it look like an accident, and sometimes it'll be so subtle like you won't even notice. And there's a lot more stuff of that. And I know when I went to the modified, I got welcomed, what do you want to call it, initiated. So there's definitely an initiation process of Nerf bars and bumpers. It's just the way it is. So I'm sure he's going to be getting some of that. But another one that's moving up, this guy has already been initiated a few times. So this one's a little bit more different. He has modified wins before, but JMF, I hear, is going 358 at Merrittville. And then going to still be running the sportsman a lot as well. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Wow, hot rumor there.
Those are the two main ones.
You know what? I didn't expect that, but I'm glad that he is, because you know what? I think that
you mustn't have been there at work that day.
I missed that one, but yeah, no,
You missed that breakdown.
I was really worried, and I think a lot of fans are worried about the car count at Merrittville and the modifieds. So to hear so many guys are moving up, and really, I think making a solid case. Like, does JMF immediately become a threat for top 5 in points? I mean, the guy knows Merrittville well.
Merrittville is the only tracks out of the 3, Merrittville, Humberstone, and Ransomville, he doesn't have a mod win at yet, but yeah. Sure, you'll be in the top 10 anyway.
I'm just saying, I feel like there's going to be some drivers
for those guys
would look over the shoulder.
5th every week to start with. Oh, a lot of drivers are going to have to look over the shoulder, no doubt about it.
So, all right, we've got the JMF news. We talked Nelson Mason.
Those are the 2 main ones I know of.
I think that's about it for rumors.
Talk
but
of
I
other
feel
guys,
like our guest.
I'm pretty sure they didn't do it.
I feel like this might be a great question for our guest, Tommy Goudge, later on, because he likes to keep track of rosters. And last year when we did our draft and I messed up certain guys not running full time in our draft of drivers for the year, he kind of chirped us online about not looking at his roster. So obviously he's going to know where everybody is. I chirped him back
because I said it wasn't as easy to find. Because I tried to find it.
Well, we get to go over things with him later on in the show. But before we get to that, we also need to plug here, Travis. You and I are going to be doing a live podcast from the Toronto Motorama show, the Custom Car and Motorsports Expo, this Saturday. I believe we're going to be on stage around 4 o'clock, 4:10, I believe is our time slot. So can't wait to be back and doing our second ever live podcast from Motorama. That was a lot of fun last year. We had a pretty decent audience come out. We had some great guests as well. And hopefully, if you're listening, you can come and join us and see us at the stage and hang out for what's going to be an awesome dirt chat at Motorama.
My favorite part is finding all the guests when we get there. Going in blind, just winging it, our style.
Yeah, because you never know who's there.
Last year turned out great. Who did we have last year? Ramsey, Scott Wood.
With Jake Hooker.
And there was one more. Oh, and Peter Tripp.
Yes. There we are. Yeah, that was the 4. That was the 4 pack.
We just pulled that together in like less than an hour.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if Clinton Jeffrey's not holding down the GSR booth by himself. I feel like we should try to
I
drag
was
him up
thinking
on
today,
stage.
he was one I was thinking of, and I was thinking like I'd love to find like an old timer. I don't care where it's from. I don't care who it is, but like someone from the old stories would be great. 'Cause I love
Maybe
old
it's like an
stories.
old drag racing guy.
Yeah, true, but we're a dirt show. That's the problem with that
I
area.
know.
It's like not really dirt central, but
I have one listener on Hits FM who is thoroughly annoyed that when I do my motorsports mouth off, I don't talk drag racing enough. And I'm like, I don't know what to say about it because I feel like, most of the tracks right now are not running drag cars locally. So what am I supposed to talk about? There is
locally,
hypothetically
the
supposed to be
drag racing schedule. It's not told me.
there's supposed to be snow on the ground right now, right?
We will meet him at TMP this summer if he wants, because I like
Yeah.
the drag race. It's just got to have anywhere that with pro mods. If it doesn't have pro mods, don't ask me to come. But gotta have some pro mods. But
I will text him back
other
that
than that, I'm there.
and tell him that I don't care. It's only about pro mods from now on. So
Pro mods is my favorite, and they just had the World Series of Pro Mod this past weekend. 100,000 win last year. Local boy Spencer Hyde won, but he did not win this year. Got beat up second round. I forget who won, but the crazy thing about that is like there's 32 pro mods going over 200 miles an hour to the 8th mile. They're only running half track, but they're still hauling over 200 these days to the half track. And then between 1 and 32, it was less than 0.1 of a second between all those 32 cars. So it
that's
turns
insane.
into, yeah, it's just a tree fest basically, right?
That's so
That's why they
crazy.
don't even bother going 132, like 1 versus 32. They draw. So like 1 and 2 could match off first round. Just because it's so close, it doesn't matter. It's literally
Yeah.
a reaction time race, and hope your stuff hooks up and you can do it consistently. But yeah, it's one of my
Which is
favorite.
kind of cool because that gives like a
World
lot
Series
more
Pro
driver
Mod.
element.
Yeah, and pro mod, you have to drive them. Like Top Fuel dragsters, like I hate to tell you, they're cool and they're loud and they're the coolest race car to ever see live. Like, and just rumbles your body and it feels like your guts are trying to leave your body just watching the thing. But driving it, it's either gas on, it's hooked up, or gas off, it's not hooked up. So you know what I mean? Like it's not much driving of it. Whereas a pro mod and a lot of more door cars are my favorite in drag racing, fast door cars, because you got to wheel those things. Like they are swerving all over the track, and yeah. Another thing we were talking about this today. I like drag racing because females are the best at it.
Yeah, you got great.
You could
got
say
better reaction time.
That is the number one sport where females are, I'd say, number one against men. Because like Shirley Muldowney, Erica Enders, Courtney Force, Brittany Force. That's just a few of them. Angelle Savoy. There's so many. Tony's wife.
Yep. Yeah,
that's just a few. There's so many more.
It gets crazy when you actually think about like
not just
their
reaction
like
times
contenders,
are bang
like
on
champions.
better than ours. It's not even close. Yeah,
like,
champions,
like
winners,
trophy
multi-time
winners. Yeah,
nonstop. Yep, Hall of Famers.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. So,
yep.
I would say I'm sure we'll see more than a few drag cars at Motorama this weekend, but I'm excited to see who brings a dirt car.
Tell your guy to listen to this podcast because we just talk some drag racing there.
Yeah, he gets like a solid minute and a half fix of drag racing right there. So,
yeah.
I also wanted to plug. We plugged Motorama. I'm gonna plug selfishly here that if you want to come and see me play some music, I'm gonna be playing at the Warehouse, a concert hall in St. Catharines, opening up for the Cocktails, April 6th, I believe is the first show. And I'm also on another bill that is going to be announced later this week. We're recording on a Wednesday night; should be out by the end of the weekend. But I believe the date of that one is April 20. I want to say the 23rd, I believe it is. I think it's a Friday night. So, Warehouse Concert Hall, warehouseniagara.com if you want to buy tickets. That'd be super cool. And if you're a racing fan and you're a music fan, then come and visit me and hang out. And Travis will probably be out at one of those shows too.
Yes. I did miss the last one, but I'll be at another one. Guaranteed.
Yeah. St. Catharines is an easier get for you than the Niagara Falls show was.
Correct. And Hamilton was even easier. Hamilton and St. Catharines are literally the exact time away each other way. 20 minutes each way. So
yeah, you're perfectly right in the middle. Works out well for you. It's almost like Ohsweken and Maryville. I feel like those are almost perfect. You're perfectly in the middle of.
Oh no, Ohsweken's way farther. Ohsweken's 45, Maryville's. Yeah, Ohsweken's solid 45. That's like going to Ohsweken though, because the Red Hills always messed. So I always take
Yeah,
the back way. Going to Ohsweken's an hour, coming home's 45.
true,
Whereas Merrittville
true.
is 25.
I can't wait to get back to the racetracks. Also, can't
Me
wait to
neither.
chat
So I'm
with
serious.
Tommy Goudge. He's going to be up next
Yep.
on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Folks from Vansickle Pet Value and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Beat the box office and the crowds. Their support of local racing doesn't just stop with you, the race fan. Catch the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the Lane 4 cylinders racing at Merrittville Speedway throughout the 2024 season. Check out Vansickle Pet Value across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines, and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. And our guest for tonight, rocking an Oilers jersey, looks like too, is Tommy Goudge. How's it going, Tommy?
Pretty good. How are you? Yeah, it's an Oilers game night. I got my hoodie on.
I like it. They're my second favorite team. I always tell people they're my Canadian team because I'm unfortunately a
Here we
Sabres
go.
fan.
Well, that's okay. They're in the East. I don't have to cheer against them. So
Yeah, exactly. You got to have a team in the East or the West. That's how I figure, anyways. But happy to have you on the show, and happy to have somebody who is passionate and knowledgeable to just talk racing with tonight. Tommy, I feel like we should probably start with what? What do you want to start with, Travis? Do you want to start with a story, or you want to get into some more topical stuff right off the hop?
I'm going to go. Let's start with the whole reason we had him on here. Let's unveil yourself with your new social media thing you got going on.
well, yeah, it's sort of been thinking about doing something for a long time, and just the last few months or so, I really started to crystallize the idea more in my head. And so it's called Open Wheel Canada. Basically, one of the main things that I want to do with it is really share information and results from Canadian sprint car super modified midget racers who are in the States mostly, who they just do not get the attention in Canada that they deserve. I don't think. Just because it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. I mean, you might see them on Flow Racing or Dirt Vision or somewhere. If you follow their social media pages, you might see what's going on with them. Or if you follow the results like I do, then you'll see their names there. But oftentimes in the results, you don't see hometowns and stuff anymore. So you might not even know that they are Canadian unless you're listening pretty closely. So just sort of guys like Aaron Willison from Langley, BC, just won $50,000 out in Las Vegas in December. And there's some other teams. Like Skylar G races primarily in the States. He's out of Alberta. We've got some Ontario teams that go down and race in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan all the time. And when they're out of Ontario, we don't seem to hear much about them. So that's one of the things I want to do with it. Also, it's just a place for me to put. Eventually, I want to have a website going, and it's a place for me to put all the stats and historical stuff that I've gathered over the years. And really, that's more of just me wanting a place to keep all that stuff and hopefully share it with people if they want to take a look at it.
Well, that stuff's super important too. Like for me, who kind of came into, I don't want to say I came into this late, but growing up in Niagara Falls, like obviously I was aware of Merrittville Speedway and I was tracking the results kind of thing, like through the Niagara Falls Review and local papers and all that sort of stuff. I wasn't going every week or anything like that. But for me now as an announcer, when I go to the track, there's a lot of, I don't want to say history that I have gaps in, but there's stuff that I'm curious about and things that I want to go back and know about. So to have a project, have a website like this that focuses, on open wheel racing, dirt and asphalt, is super important. And I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing kind of get off the ground. What's the handles if anybody wants to go out there and follow it right off the hop? Where can people find the information? Find you right now on socials?
So it's all under Open Wheel Canada, Twitter or X now, Facebook, Instagram. Those are the three that I have going right now. I'm not much of a TikTok guy, but we'll see what happens with that down the road. But just starting out with those three for now, and I'm it's sort of a soft launch. I haven't done any like real promotion of it or anything. I kind of want to have the website up and running and have some stuff to share with people before really getting it going. But I wanted to get it going now, because with the season starting up and guys and girls racing in the States now, like there was just a big pavement sprint car race in Florida last week where Aaron Willison was racing and finished third in it. So I just wanted a place to start sharing all those results and things, and just slowly build awareness of it as we go. But I think it's really important for these drivers to get more recognition than they currently do. So yeah, so if I can have a small part in that, then I'd like to do that. But it's more about helping these teams get more recognition around here.
All right, so let's go with the life of Tommy Goudge. How did you become to be the statistician? I was always impressed with your stats over the day. I think your rookie year as announcer was my rookie year as sprint car driver. So yeah, let's give us the life story.
Yeah, so 2008 is when I started announcing at Ohsweken, and did also the PR work and stuff for SOS as well. And that sort of started because Greg. So that was the first year of sprint car racing at Ohsweken Weekly. Greg Kellnan had been doing the SOS work prior to that, Southern Ontario Sprints. If you're not aware, although I think most of the people who listen to this show probably know who SOS is, but I had been doing some basically working for free, but doing some PR work for Ryan Litt. I also had a website and a blog, and I was pretty active in chat rooms and stuff. It was a long time ago. And my brother and I went to like 40, 50 races a year all over Canada and the US back then, just as fans. And so Greg had seen my work at various places. The first Canadian Sprint Car Nationals in 2005, I wrote a fairly lengthy blog post handicapping the whole field basically, and that sort of was one of the things that got me noticed back then, because nobody else was really doing anything like that for local sprint car racing back then. So it just sort of evolved from there. I still don't really consider myself a great announcer, but I make up for it with having a decent knowledge base. And I think I've improved a little bit over the years, although I announced for 9 years at Ohsweken, and then after not doing it very often, when I do go back every once in a while to help out, I feel like a fish out of water most of the time. But Greg and Adam, and especially the production crew behind the scenes on G-Force, they really make it a lot easier to just sort of go in and it's more like just a fun chat between friends now, basically, on G-Force, than it is like a real announcing job.
Yeah, it's different, right? You can definitely, anytime that I've gotten to do any work with them, it always feels a little bit more, it feels a little bit more like what you would watch on TV, in the way that, Mike Joy is doing play by play for a NASCAR race, for example, but he's not doing play by play in the same way that Rick Jenneret was doing play by play for the Buffalo Sabres, for example. You listen to the difference between the TV telecasts of a NASCAR race, for example, and the radio broadcast. It's very different. What I find myself doing at Maryville Speedway, especially with the lack of video that we had last year, it was a lot more play-by-play radio style broadcast. Whereas I personally do enjoy the fact that at Ohsweken you get that G-Force, that TV style broadcast, and that's again where somebody like you is so valuable, having that knowledge and that basis of stats to go off of. Something you mentioned there just briefly was your handicapping of sprint car races, and I guess it was the Northern Nationals. How does you go about handicapping sprint car races? Like, what, with so many competitors and some, from beyond our local area, how do you go about saying who is got the best chance at it? I can't even wrap my head around it.
Well, so back then it was like there was no live video, really. I mean, maybe there was like one race live streamed or something, but basically YouTube wasn't really a thing either. So it was basically just from going to races and looking at results and looking at point standings and who's winning and who. Like back then, I was really just a big fan and really plugged into what was going on with sprint car racing locally and open wheel racing in general. I was a big super modified fan and still am as well. And so I always kept an eye on that stuff too. But basically, it was just using stats and history to come up with a general idea of what we were going to see. The one thing I didn't account for was Kenny Jacobs showing up and waxing everybody, but because I don't even know if he was pre-entered for that race. That's 20 years ago almost. But I mean, other than that, especially back then, there wasn't as much parity as there is now. So it was easier to look at, the top 5 in the point standings for all the different groups, the Patriots, ESS. Back then it was sprints on dirt. I think some of the URC cars came from New Jersey, Pennsylvania as well. So it was fairly easy to look at the point standings and win totals from back then, and you could tell who the good guys were going to be. Although Ohsweken, especially back then, really lent itself more to people who had been there before. So you took that into account as well. We used to see guys come in, you think they were going to do well, and they would struggle the first night or two. Kurt Michael was really good down in the Northeast back then, and he came in. I don't even think he made the feature when he came to Ohsweken the first time. So, that's a long time ago. It's hard to remember some of that stuff, but yeah, that's generally how I did it back then. It was entirely different than what we do now. When I started at Ohsweken, Greg and I created all the social media pages that we have now. None of that existed for the track or for SOS back then.
What was your list called that we would do, like your preview for the Nationals every year? I used to be stoked when I made it on there. And how long would it take you to make that stuff? Because you do like a little write-up on at least 30 drivers. It was like dark horses, contenders. How'd you used to rank it? I used to love that stuff.
Yeah, I used to take whatever the starting field was going to be, the number of cars for that race. I would try to name 30 or 25 or however many it was going to be and sort of categorize them in different groups.
You gotta start doing that again.
Yeah, I I have 2 kids and a full-time job now.
I know.
Back then I was in my 20s and still living at my dad's house and didn't really have any responsibilities at all and didn't have a serious job either. So I had a lot more time.
We're giving
on
you
hands,
another responsibility of the list, bud.
Yeah,
bring back the list.
What? I don't even remember what I called that now. It's probably been.
I have one of them.
Oh, he's got the physical list. See, I'm fascinated by this because for myself, even I really enjoy analytics in racing. As I think Travis has the physical list. Okay, what's it called? What is it?
It's not. It's just the one that I forget what it was called, but this is just some I'll give you some examples of one that he wrote.
I think I used to call it "Who's Who" at the Nationals or something like that.
Yeah. So this year I was, I think, dark horse maybe. So Travis Cunningham, the 09 Rookie of the Year at Ohsweken, missed a few races of the season due to engine problems, but made up for lost time with a string of podiums all over the province the last month of the season. He also finished second in the Northern Summer Nationals at Ohsweken in July. Remember that one? That was the Daggett. That was a big one. And finished 10th in the Ohsweken standing despite missing some races. He's also laid down some of the fastest laps of the year at the track and couldn't near the top in time trials. And I was that year. See, you were right. Or here's another one. Oh, listen to this one. Surprises. Number 7X, Mike Ling. Ling has not had the season everyone envisioned this year's return to the dirt track ranks. 2 blown engines on opening night, a huge crash in early June. When he went out of the ballpark, he was in the parking lot in turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, that was big.
And other issues resulted in a 16th place in points. He's won 2 features on pavement, though, and been close to the top of the speed charts at Ohsweken. So there's a couple of examples. And I missed this list so much.
See, that's great.
You know what? You're right. I got to figure out a way to start doing that again. But
I bring it back memories to him. He was getting.
You have the juices flowing now.
Well,
I know.
I before Travis got back, I was talking about like my love of analytics, and it's the one thing that I kind of haven't really been able to get my hands on as much as I want to yet. Maybe now that I've had a couple seasons at Merrittville, I can kind of start to explore that stuff with modifieds and with sportsmen, just to kind of go over the history and see if there's trends that emerge and that sort of stuff, because I just love looking at those numbers. And it sounds like you're very similar to me in that way too, Tommy, where there's things to be learned by actually studying the statistics, even if they are baseline when it comes to evaluating our local talent. And I think it's just another angle that anybody who's a dirt racing fan or a fan of racing in Canada, it's just another angle that we can sink our teeth into.
Yeah, I agree, and it's easier now than it ever has been because we have things like My Race Pass, which back then did not exist either. You were basically at the mercy of whether a series had a good PR guy who put the results and points and all that stuff on the website, and if they didn't, then you kind of had to just search out. tjslideways.com is still an invaluable resource, but especially back then, that was one of the main places where you could go to get results and information. So uh, he's a guy you should have on the show sometime too. Is
We were
Todd?
just talking about that last night.
Yeah, is Todd from TJ Slideways. He's a good guy and he loves coming to Canada. So
Yeah, that's a great one to have on there. Something else I wanted to gauge your opinion on, because it's kind of breaking news that we haven't actually had a chance to talk about on the podcast. I think it broke literally while we were recording our other part last night. But Tommy, how do you feel about the news about Southern Ontario Motor Speedway and its return?
I think it's great. As everybody has said, I mean, there's a huge contingent of racers and fans and sponsors who want a place to have racing down in that area. I'm basically halfway. I'm in London. I'm basically halfway between Ohsweken and South Buxton, and I've been going to South Buxton for a long time. And I kind of was. I was pretty worried about it this year about whether it was going to get going or not, or whether somebody was going to do anything with it, because it was March 1st and we hadn't really heard much about it. So it's promising. It's early days. They got a big task ahead of them, but they do have an infrastructure of things there that a lot of people don't have in other parts of the province, where it comes to a good base of racers there. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. It's interesting that one of the people involved in it is a sprint car racer, Will Marsh, because historically Buxton is really a late model track. Sometimes when you go there for a sprint car show, you sit next to some of the local fans and they're grumbling about push trucks and why are these things with wings out here and all that stuff. But they pack the place whenever the sprint cars are there too. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do with it, and what the right number of sprint car races is there. I don't think anymore there's enough local local teams there to have a weekly series. At least maybe they can get something going, but a lot of the local sprint car teams from down around that area, some of the guys are retired or just not involved in racing anymore. So they kind of, in terms of sprint car racing, they would need to sort of rebuild that a little bit before they can, I think, before they can have like a really solid group of weekly racers there. But we'll see what happens. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay, so we were talking about this. You think, not, I don't want this to sound bad, but like, we think not enough dirt racers in the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame, and you have a pretty good list of people that you think should be in there. So give us the
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, well, my list is really sprint car heavy, because
That's okay.
that's what I know more. I would love for people from all across the province and all across the country to come up with other names, especially people who aren't sprint car racers. But some of the guys who I think should be in there are Tim G, who was the first and for years the only Canadian to ever win a World of Outlaws sprint car race. I think he should have been in there years ago. Not only
Sounds a
for
lot.
that, but also because after he stopped driving, he had a very successful racing supply business out in the Edmonton area, and really was like, he was the Hoosier Tire dealer for that area for a long time, and really kept racing going from that perspective after he stopped driving. So he's sort of a builder and a racer. Some other guys, Lynn McIntosh, who's from Thunder Bay, he's unfortunately passed away, but he was for a long time the only Canadian racing weekly at Knoxville. back in the late 70s, early 80s. He was also a coach for the Canadian ski team back in those days too. So he's a really interesting guy. His car was on display, might still be on display in the Thunder Bay Airport. I know it was for a while, and then it was at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame in Knoxville for a while. So he's another one. Jimmy Carr, we already got in there. That was one of the guys that was well deserved too. He's from BC and was a good driver in his own right, and then became crew chief for Tony Stewart Racing and won a bunch of races. Now he's with the Selzies out on the West Coast and doing work for them. So he's an example of a guy who is in there, and there's a bunch of guys like him that should be as well. Lou Kennedy from Winnipeg, Joe Plazik. I mean, that's a no-brainer, I think, as well. We were talking about that the other day, Travis.
Yep.
I forgot. Keith Dempster, Steve Poirier. I mean, Steve Poirier just retired, so he is
Yeah,
just
but you got to get him in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just
he's
starting
due.
to become eligible, and I really think he's another no-brainer. I mean, it's tough because I don't know a lot about other types of racing in Canada. I don't know a lot about boat
What I was
racing.
just thinking of is Pat O'Brien in there? Because he should be in there.
Yeah, that's I
Him
want
and
to
Danny should probably be in there.
Greg Kellen and I were talking about, because
He would know.
Yeah, he's much more of a modified late model person, especially if he's from Eastern Ontario, so he knows a bunch of those guys a lot better, and he's a little older than me too, so he knows some of those names. I mean, I know who Pat O'Brien is, but I'm not super familiar with his accomplishments. But I mean, there's racers from all across the country, and there just isn't the recognition for them to be able to get nominated. It's a difficult process to nominate. You have to have a lot of information when you go in there, and I think some people look at that and they think it's daunting, and they just don't go through with it. I've been messaging with some people to get information to try to nominate some of these people. The deadline for this year is I think it's July, for the next round of nominations. So I'm hoping to nominate a bunch of those guys I mentioned, and hopefully some other people will look at it and try to do the same as well. But I mean, there's, like I said, I don't know a lot about like boat racing, for example, or I realize the Hall of Fame has a huge task. They're not just looking at dirt racing. They're looking at everything, and like there's rally racers in there, and boat racers, and I don't need all kinds of road racing people, and I don't know a lot about some of those things. So it's got to be a really tough job to try to sift through all of that. But some of the guys I mentioned, they should be in there for sure, I think.
I mean, I'm looking over the inductions, and like there's some years it feels like there's like 10, 15 guys going in, right? Like 2021 when Glenn went in. I'm looking at it. It's a packed lineup of people that were inducted that year. Even this year, when we talk about Steve Poirier just retired. Well, James Hinchcliffe is barely retired, and he's in there. I mean, he's still racing sports cars.
Yeah.
And he's in the Hall of Fame already.
What a dog and pony show one that is. He's not even old.
He's, I think, the youngest guy that's ever been inducted to the
That
Canadian
one's
Motorsports
rubbish.
Hall of Fame. But
well, I mean, they have
saying
a
you
tough
shouldn't be in
job
there.
because,
It's just a little early.
Yeah, I mean, one thing they're trying to do, you can see clearly, is they're trying to get name recognition so people will pay attention to the inductions, and I get that, because that's one way of getting people interested in what the Hall of Fame is doing. As far as I know, they don't really have a physical space for everything. And that's something that they need to do as well. They had one at one point down at the CNE, and then I can't remember what exactly happened there, but
Heritage
I think,
Museum, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't
I
think, one at the Heritage?
Yeah, so they were involved in. There was a bunch of halls of fame that all had stuff in one building, and they all got evicted or something. I think when they built the soccer stadium, might have been when they got kicked out of there. But
it almost feels like it needs to be at like CTMP. Like just put like an extra building, see if fellows and their group can find some real estate close by the racetrack and put it in there or something.
Yeah, and I know this is an Ontario-based podcast, but I also find not only the Hall of Fame, but just Canadian racing media in general is really Ontario and Quebec centric, and that's the two biggest provinces, so they should be. There's more racing going on here than there is elsewhere, but the rest of the country has stuff going on too, and there needs to be more recognition of that. I think, and that's one of the reasons why I started my Open Wheel Canada idea, was to try to cover open wheel stuff across the country. And I think I'm smart enough to realize that I don't know enough about other types of short track racing across the country. I'll just stick with the sprint cars and super modifieds and midgets because I know about that stuff. That's what I pay attention to the most. So I kind of hope that someone will take up the idea and do it for like modifieds or stock cars or something like that
Just
too.
hire Greg Callan.
But but really have an eye on not just Ontario, just everywhere, because Quebec, everywhere needs more coverage than what they get now.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many.
Okay, I want to ask you about.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
you go ahead.
Well, I
No,
was just
you.
gonna say, look at
And I'll
how
ask you
many
next.
like results are how many regional reporters and different streaming services are popping up stateside. All these things are promoting and covering short track racing regionally in all these different divisions really, really well, and it just seems like it hasn't quite got up here. And I don't know if that's just geography and how divided we can be by geography, but you're 100% right, because you're mentioning guys from BC, and I don't really know them, but for example, one of my coworkers, Carl Brown, who's from Vancouver, him and his dad grew up going to Skagit just across the border in
Mm-hmm.
Washington, right? So when I think of
Yeah.
that, I'm like, oh, well, there must have been Canadian guys going over to Skagit and going over to Washington and all those kind of places to race the same way that we have a Matt Williamson going over and competing in the Super Dirt Car Series, or Dalton Slacks going to Port Royal. Like that
Yep.
happens in other parts of Canada, but we're just so divided by that geography. So you're 100% right.
Yeah, and I mean Robbie Price, who was on the World of Outlaws tour driving Jason Side's car last year. He's from BC, Skagit guy, and he also ran a whole bunch on pavement, because there's a huge pavement sprint car community out on the West Coast, especially on Vancouver Island. And so like that's where Billy Foster came from way back in the 60s, who was the first. There were other Canadians who ran the Indy 500 before him, but he was the first really recognized Canadian that ran the Indy 500. And so dating all the way back to then, there's a huge history of open wheel racing on the West Coast. And yeah, Skagit was really important. That's where Jimmy Carr ran a bunch of his races. And geography is an issue. But we don't have the information. We don't get that information the way, like if you're a race fan in New York, and you were reading back in the day, it would have been the trade paper like National Speed Sport News or something. You would get all the sprint car results from California, and those guys were household names, like guys who ran, especially the wingless sprint cars back in the 80s and 90s out in California. Everybody on the East Coast knew who those guys were, and we don't have that here the way they do in the U.S.
One thing I wanted to ask was the Alberta sprint car scene. That Ben Siliker guy was coming up during the COVID years. Like, how many races? Do you know how many races they have and how many cars they get and stuff like that?
Yeah, they used to have the track in Edmonton is really nice. Down out at the airport there, it used to be called Castrol Raceway. Before that, it was Budweiser Motorsports Park. I think it's called Rad Torque Raceway now, and it looks a lot like Skagit actually. It's a nice track. I've been there twice, um, and they had a good following of 360 sprint cars out there, and then some other divisions as well, and it kind of died off. Now they have sportsman sprint cars, which are, I guess you could equate them a little bit to what we have with the crates here, although I think their engine rules are a little more relaxed, obviously. They have similar classes out in Montana and Washington and some of those places, and so they have a pretty good following of sportsman sprint cars in Alberta, but they're lacking on dates there. The oval track in Edmonton is not used as often as it could be. I don't think they don't run every week. There's some other tracks here and there, but they don't have the infrastructure to necessarily run a whole bunch of sprint car races or something. But there's a good contingent of Alberta sprint car racers and dirt racers out there. They just need more opportunities.
All right, well, should we hit him with the question, Travis?
Yeah, which one are we going to ask him?
Well, I feel like we gotta. This is his first appearance, so we gotta start with the first one here. Of I'm going to give you one race car, one racetrack to drive anywhere in your in your world, in your life, just one time. What's the combination you're going for?
Oh man, I don't know. Uh, yeah, I've listened to your show and I've heard you ask this question to other people, and I still didn't think ahead.
I was wondering about that. I was gonna be like, oh, did you prep yourself for this one?
I
But
didn't know we were going to ask him this one or
Yeah,
the
I mean,
racetrack one because he's not a
I'm
driver.
I'm definitely not a driver. I have briefly driven on a handful of occasions. I drove a bomber car at Ohsweken once. That was scary. Uh, I you know I the first thing that came to mind was Oswego, but
Yeah,
pavement Oswego,
that's fine.
because that's I just love going there still. I haven't seen it dirt. I've never been there to see the dirt version of it, so I can't comment on that. But I would I think I would be really scared, but a wing super modified at Oswego would be pretty cool just to even idle around a couple times just for the history of that place and how that's
Y-
another place where Canadians have had so much success over the years that it would be cool to just ride around there and think about that.
yeah,
I've
be a part
driven
of that
around it in
history.
my truck and that was cool enough. So
All right.
Love
Well,
it.
you mentioned the second question, Travis. So let's get him let's
Sure.
get him to answer this one too. I'm going to give you an unlimited budget and an unlimited plot of land wherever you want to build your dream race facility. What does that look like? What tracks are you borrowing from to make the design? What does your ultimate racetrack venue look like to you?
well, I had a great idea. Well, I thought it was a great idea. I don't, you guys might not be familiar with the London area that well, but a few years ago, the Ford plant near St. Thomas closed, and there was a huge plot of land that they have since bought. Amazon since bought and built a big warehouse on. Uh, but it would have been the perfect spot to put like a real NASCAR style track, like close to the 401, hotels nearby in London. Like it would have, like we've had all these rumors over the years about different oval tracks being built in Southern Ontario to bring NASCAR to. And every time I drove past there and saw that empty building, and then eventually they knocked the building down, there was nothing there, and it's a huge plot of land. It would have been an awesome place to put like a NASCAR short track, like something like Richmond, or although Richmond lately hasn't been getting good press, but something
That's only because the
something of that
cars suck.
nature. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Richmond with Gen 4s was awesome. End of story.
because
Yeah, they
I
need
think
horsepower at that place.
Yeah.
Canada needs a track bigger than like I really like Cayuga, Jukasa. That would have been a great place to have something go on, but Canada needs a slightly bigger speedway to really have something like NASCAR come in, and I think that would have been, if I had an unlimited amount of money, I would have built something there like a NASCAR track, and then like if I had enough space and all that kind of stuff, build a dirt track, build whatever there, like a huge motorsports
Make it like
complex.
Charlotte.
Yeah,
Yeah,
build Charlotte North.
yeah, exactly.
Charlotte North.
So that was sort of like if I had unlimited money and political, because around here you would definitely need some political
That's the
friends.
main problem. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
That would have been a great spot to. I mean, there was rumors before they put the Amazon plant in. There was rumors that they were going to move Canada's Wonderland to that spot. Like
Ooh.
that's the kind of space we're talking about.
Hmm.
Is but now the Amazon plant's there, and that everything else goes out the window. But it would have been an interesting spot to do something with.
Yeah. Well,
Love it.
I kind of wish for something the same. I really wanted the 40 project to get off the ground, but heck, if it was out London way too, I'd be just as stoked. Tommy, thanks for taking the time out tonight. Thanks for being a part of the show. Really looking forward to what you're doing, covering open wheel racing both on and off the racetrack, or off the dirt, I should say, throughout Canada. And as somebody who is a stats guy and looking to kind of build more stats stuff, I feel like you and I are going to have some conversations, I think, this season, because there's, I think, a lot more we can do to help fans get more engaged on the maybe nerdier side of the racing in this province and this country in general.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's really about preserving the history as it is anything else. That's the other thing that's important is we
Absolutely.
don't have a place you can go to find information about what happened 20 years ago. So I want that too.
Yeah,
But
for
thanks,
sure.
guys. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
There he is, Tommy Goudge on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.